Hey everybody, I'm Devin Rogers,
And this is Onyx. How you doing?
and today we are here to talk about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is our first exit review.
There we go.
We are going to go through the game and have a little chat about it. We're going to rate different aspects of the game and come up with a final score individually, and then we're going to average our scores together at the end for the official Gaming Resume score. Rudy and Matt could not be here with us today because they did not finish the game in time. Shame on them.
Yeah.
The idea with exit reviews is that the zeitgeist has pretty much moved on at this point, so we're kind of like the last hurrah for Zelda before it moves on. So Zelda Breath of the Wild, Onyx, is still arguably the biggest release of the year.
Yeah.
I think it had 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 all across the board for the most part.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts, just top level, on Breath of the Wild, having gotten to the end?
It's a great game. It's a great game that did a lot of things right, but it's not a 10. I mean, we've discussed this before in our just discussions and whatnot, and getting a perfect 10 is difficult for anything, right? Like, there really aren't very many, if at all, really. But this one got pretty close at some parts, and then some it just not really, no. So great game overall.
Do you think the people that have been giving it 10s were kind of looking at it from maybe a nostalgia factor, or maybe because it did so many new things with an open world genre that they decided, hey, we've just got to give it a 10 just because?
Well, yeah, I think nostalgia does play a factor because it's Zelda. It's got a lot of the familiar aspects of the series. But the game, I can see why a lot of reviewers would give it a 10. Their lifestyle of reviewing so many different games, and then you have one that kind of breaks the norm of open world. It's not linear. You don't have this particular path that you have to follow to unlock the next story element. You know, it's very open. Genuinely, this is probably the most open world game I've ever played in the definition of that word. So I can see why they would give it a 10. Especially if they don't put in more than what you need to beat the game. It's probable that they got in, put their 40 hours in, and done. Maybe not even 40 hours, maybe 30 hours. But I think people like us that spend an extra 10, 20 hours, 30 hours with that game world, seeing more of the deficits pop up, I think that's where we come in and actually really break it down more.
So The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is Nintendo's biggest release in years, and it is the cornerstone for their launch of the Switch.
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of expected it to do well. I believe the numbers show that there have been more copies of Zelda sold than Nintendo Switches.
Yeah.
So
That's
I think
insane.
by all marks, this game is a success.
Oh, definitely.
More than a success. I don't think any other company will be able to match the success. Maybe in quantity of numbers, but I don't think in attach rate it's going to get there. Not anytime soon.
It's over 1-to-1, like you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts.
All right, so let's dig into some of the specifics. So we're going to start with the story. By the way, spoilers, if you have not played the game or if you have not beaten the game, we very likely are going to hit some major plot points and probably even talk about the final ending boss areas, so please be forewarned. So this game starts off with Link awakening in a room without his memories.
Somewhat like other Zelda games. Link's Awakening, for example.
And he comes out of this room and he meets this old man, and he's kind of given some challenges to go through a few different shrines and get some stuff before it is revealed that the man is the king of Hyrule.
Right.
And basically he gives Link this quest of, my daughter is in the castle, Hyrule Castle, trying to keep Calamity Ganon contained within. You got the crap beat out of you 100 years ago, and you've been asleep all this time. I guess Zelda's been in the castle keeping Calamity Ganon at bay all this time.
Pretty much.
I wonder how they live for so... Anyway.
And she didn't age either.
Yeah.
Like everybody else aged, Impa aged.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Minor, didn't affect scores at all. But the main plot point is you've got to go collect your memories, rehook up with some past acquaintances to gain their strength, specifically the 4 champions from the Zora domain,
Rito Village.
the Gerudo Village, Rito, and the Gorons.
Yeah.
So you basically just go around and say hi to everybody before you go to the castle, or you can go straight to Ganon right at the beginning and just go try and attempt to kick his butt.
Which is a cool choice, mind you. Which goes back to the whole, probably the most open world game I've ever played because it's so open. But I think going into the story elements of these things, that's probably why it's not that good of a story, in my opinion. They even in interviews, they mentioned that they had a hard time coming up with a story because of the fact that it's so open. So that it shows, unfortunately.
So you think they actually built the game the gameplay came first and the story came second?
And that's a Nintendo way of thinking. They've always said they want to make sure the game plays best before they go into the story. I mean, when the game was being developed, I'm sure you heard Shigeru Miyamoto was given the game to play, and all he did was climb trees. And he said, okay, I can see where this is going. And they kind of greenlit the project after that. But that's what they did, though. The climbing is such an integral part of the game that it shows. The gameplay came first, definitely. Yeah.
So because the gameplay was the driving factor, so as part of the gameplay, they say, hey, go around and find these memories. And they actually wove that into the gameplay. There's a whole screen where it shows you what the memory locations look like. And so there's kind of like a treasure hunting piece of the game where you got to go find your memories. And from the perspective of the broader story, it makes sense. You woke up, you don't know what's going on. So the story and gameplay combined, it makes sense that you got to go find your memories. Unfortunately, because there's not an order in which you are meant to find them, or there's not an order in which you are required to find them, you can find your last memory or one of the last memories first and one of the earlier memories last, and the memories do go in a chronological order. And because of that, the pacing at which you uncover the story can be so off that you don't even get any emotional attachment to what's going on.
Right. And that's definitely part of the issue too. It's while they're all connected that way, and you can find them in totally different random ways. Even if it was more connected, the game still lacks character development. It doesn't give you enough time with these characters, especially the champions, who all have,
I would agree,
so much potential, right? They all are very well designed. The design of them is fantastic, but they just don't give you enough time with them. The closest one I would say would be the Goron champion, and even then, it was more so through proxy of his ancestor, or descendant rather.
Right.
That's the only reason why I thought, okay, this guy's kind of cool. But really looking back and thinking, okay, how much do I know of this character? Not a lot. You don't. Most for the Rito champion, I did not care for that guy at all, and he looked so cool. It looked like Falco, and
oh, that's who he looked like. He did look like Falco, and he was kind of a jerk too, just like
exactly.
Falco.
He's Falco. But that's I think that's the weakest part of the story. It's not enough character development, not enough strong characters, and the one really strong character, Zelda, has her own issues too, but she really is the best character in the game. You can actually see progression because you see the most of her.
That's true.
Yeah.
When you finally get all the memories unlocked and you go through them in order and you see some of the struggles that she had, there were some conflicts that she had with her father, just the relationship that she had with the different champions, her relationship with Link and how that kind of evolved. She had the most progression out of all the characters in the game.
Right.
What about that's it. I mean, that's the main plot of this game. there are a lot of side plots and side characters and tertiary characters that have their own little bits. I mean, there's the little, I say little, she was taller, scientist up on the hill, and she did some experiments that reverted her age back to almost being a baby.
Yeah.
There were some cool little things here and there that kind of kept you going, but nothing really that was of much consequence.
Right. It's the game itself, the world is at an epic scale, right? The world is huge. So the story that it presented did not match the world that it gave you. And not every story has to be epic. I mean, you look at my personal favorite Zelda, Majora's Mask. It's not an epic story. It's actually very small in comparison to like Ocarina of Time and things like that. So you don't necessarily need a big story like that. But in this game, I think it would have benefited if they, possibly like given checkpoints. So, maybe for every dungeon that you beat, every divine beast that you finish, yeah, you get that particular cinematic story element to it, but maybe say after you beat 2, it doesn't matter what 2, but after you beat 2, here's an extra cutscene because, hey, now you're kind of at the halfway point of where we want you to be. And then give more insight to maybe Link or to Zelda or to whoever.
Right.
The game could have benefited from just more time telling the story. And I think that while it succeeded for a sequel, if they were to do that, I think it would be an even better game. So that excites me. And going back to Link losing, like if you really think about it, going through the memories and finding out that 100 years ago when they fought Ganon, Link never actually fought Ganon. Link lost to Guardians. And then Zelda put him away because, oh my gosh, Link is dead. We need him alive. That's lame. He never fought Ganon. Ganon never beat Link. And that was part of the appeal of the story. Holy crap, Link actually lost to Ganon. Like that's never happened in a game before, in a Zelda game before. But then you find that it was just Guardians that are, you kill them with the Master Sword like nothing. So that aspect was also very, very, very disappointing, in my opinion.
Was there anything else about the story that you wanted to talk about? Because I think that as you said, the story wasn't that epic. It didn't need to be. But for me, there isn't much else to talk about.
No, I think the rest will go down to gameplay. So overall,
Okay.
that's really how I feel. It's just a disappointingly sad story that could have been potentially great. If that makes sense.
So out of 10, how would you rate the story?
A 7.
7. I would also rate it a 7. Yep. There we go. 7. We're probably people are already turning the video off. 7's for Zelda. These guys don't know what they're talking about. But that's what it's hard for me to think of all these people that gave this game a 10. I can't imagine they're giving it a 10 based on story. No. Because the story has issues. Nothing major. It was still very enjoyable.
Absolutely.
It still made sense. But it did have issues. It was not perfect.
Right.
So let's shift gears and let's start talking about gameplay. Now, it's very hard to criticize the gameplay in this game too much because it's pretty damn good.
It is incredible gameplay, most definitely.
I mean, even from the get-go, the idea of here's all your skills in the tutorial area. Here's your paraglider. Go. Have fun. Do whatever the heck you want. And you can. The combat system... Oh, let's talk about the combat. Maybe we'll start there.
So, the combat system is more basic than past iterations. In Skyward Sword, I mean, even if you were to take out the motion controls, it's a pretty deep combat system. Not Dark Souls level, mind you, but it does have a lot of intricacies to it. This one was much more basic in comparison. And for the record, the gameplay section is the one where I kind of delved the deepest, so forgive me if I rant at all. But there are a few things that take away from... So combat in particular, Flurry Rush is a broken system.
I barely used it, to be honest.
Flurry Rush overpowers you. I mean, you look at a Lionel, right? Which are
The big Centaurian
yes,
dudes.
yes. So the Lionels are essentially the toughest enemies in the game. I mean, the first time you fight them, you're gonna die. It doesn't matter how good you think you are again, you're going to die because you don't understand the combat system. You don't really know the intricacies of it, and they're overpowered. I mean, they hit hard. You die in one hit typically when you first fight them. Once you understand the system, it's just disappointing because the way the system works is you have to be in the way of this, like, where the hitbox of the attack is, you have to be in that area. So it's not actually time based. Like there is some timing involved, but it's not like action games like Bayonetta where it really is all about the timing. And here, if your Lionel is rushing at you, it doesn't have to be close to you. The hitbox is in front of him, so you can like jump when he's not even close to you and immediately go into Flurry Rush. So that system is actually busted, for the lack of a better term.
Maybe just for Lionels though, because
and Ganon and Moblin. So I tried it out. Yeah, it's not. Unfortunately, it's all about the hitboxes. When you fight Ganon, and this is somewhat spoilerish, he does a like big fire sword swing, and there was a time where I jumped and it didn't trigger Flurry Rush at all. And there was a time that I jumped after the swing had happened, and it triggered Flurry Rush. And I'm like, oh boy, this system is not good.
In general, I didn't use it because I felt that dodging in this game, like when I think of dodging, I think back to Ocarina of Time because I actually used dodging to get across the map because of how far you jump. I wouldn't run forward. I wouldn't roll forward. I mean, I'd use a horse when I could. But if I didn't have my horse, I would just look to the side of where I needed to go, and I would strafe jump all the way to where I needed to go because you jump so far and so fast.
Yeah.
In this game, if I'm... Oh, I can actually do visuals.
Actually
if I'm fighting this guy here, and he goes to swing his sword, and I jump, I move like 2 feet.
Yeah, you're going to get hit.
And you're going to get hit. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
I never used it. I did Flurry Rush a couple times because I think that's part of a tutorial at some point. I think
so, yeah.
But generally speaking, I would just try to go in and use bow and arrows to get some critical shots off. Or I would just walk in with a big weapon. Towards the end of the game, it's a lot easier to do that. You walk in with some overpowered weapons that you've picked up, and you can just decimate moblins. Early on, especially when you've got 3 hearts, it's a lot harder because you're very close to dying after just a couple hits. So you can't walk into a tower of like 5 or 6 guys with just a wooden sword and expect to, do very well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You kind of have to use, and that's what I like about this game is they give you so many different ways to attack the enemies. Usually there's some fire canisters that you can explode. You can use the magnetic thing to knock people off of stuff. Yeah. I think the bombs might be a little OP because even though they don't do that much damage, you can stun lock all the enemies, and oftentimes you can just knock them off of platforms with a single bomb.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it was still fun to do.
Oh, yeah. It was fun too. I mean, the game is just... It's so open. You can paraglide and drop bombs on them, blow them up, and then jump down and do a, downward stab. And I mean, there's just so many different things you can do. Or you can, like, as you're falling, shoot some arrows and then do your downward stab, throw another bomb, whatever. There's so many options. There's so many things to do. And that's where the gameplay, honestly, is perfect, in my opinion. It has perfect gameplay when it comes to the loop. Right? You explore, you see something interesting in the distance, you go explore and see what's there. You might have a combat challenge, you might have just a very small little puzzle, and then you get rewarded with either a Korok seed or maybe a weapon or whatever the case may be. It has that really good loop of the world inviting you to see what is there, what's hidden, and in that aspect, it is genuinely perfect because it invited me and I felt like, I felt compelled. I wanted to see this world. And that doesn't happen with a lot of open world games. They feel like just kind of boring design, and this one really didn't have that.
There was a surprising amount of secret stuff in places where in other games you would think, oh, this is just the area where they had to build some geometry just to make sure everything was kind of put together. There's really never anything back there. But there was. Mm-hmm. There is so much hidden stuff in this game, whether it be treasure chests or they've got 600 something Korok seeds.
900.
900. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Spread out everywhere. That's a ton. I found so many of those dudes just walking around.
Exactly.
To the point where you almost didn't really need any more inventory space because it was just like, man, I've got like 20 swords now. I think I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, the Korok seats were cool, though. Unfortunately, the ultimate reward, I don't know if you know what it is, were for finding all 900.
Oh, I looked it up.
Yeah. You get poop, guys.
What a troll.
You get poop.
You literally get poop.
And it's hinted at you, too, because if you read the description of the Korok seeds, it tells you, oh, it has a weird smell. so the guy at the end, it's like, oh, you collected all of them. Congratulations. Here's a big pile of poop.
Here's our fiber seeds that you've eaten.
It's terrible. But yeah, in that aspect, like I said, the game is definitely great. The climb everything, go anywhere mentality.
Wow.
I think it might change the way that I play games, because I might want to do that in an open world game and then not be able to. That's going to disappoint me.
There are so many games that they have used that as a selling point. Yeah. I think Skyrim, it was like, look, you can go over that mountain. You can go. And it's like, at some point, that's not true.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, at some point, it's not true in this game either. But if you look at the entire world map, everything in between, it is so easy to just bloop. Exactly. And there's stuff up there.
Yeah.
It's not just a random mountain that they put there for the sake of immersion of the world. Like, there's stuff up there.
Like Hyrule Castle. You think of Hyrule Castle in older games, and you think, okay, yeah, it's just, you never really get in the castle. But in this one, it's like, you really get in the castle.
Yeah.
And before I fought Ganon at the end, I thought to myself, what the heck? Let me just climb. And there was a treasure chest. And then I kept climbing, and there was like a little, nothing but like an opening where you can just kind of rest. And I thought, why don't I just keep climbing? I got all the way to the very tip of the castle, little spear-looking thing at the very top. And there was a Korok seed.
Yep.
Did you do it too?
I did that too.
And that's why this game excels. It does that. It invites you to do crap like that. It's inventive, and then you do it, and it works. And you're like, holy crap, how do they think of this? It's great. It's great.
What did you think about the shrines? Because that is another important part of this game.
Right. They were good. I wish they were longer. I wish they had more variety. Because even though the puzzles were different, we had like 21 combat shrines, and they didn't differ at all.
That's
besides
true.
Very small little like area differences, you know. But the shrines, they were fine. It's just after a while they got kind of boring.
See, I honestly had more fun with the shrines than I did with the dungeons.
Really?
I mean, so speaking about the dungeons to me were just bigger shrines. Yeah. And they each had some sort of trick to them, because you have to either rotate the actual beast that you're in, or you have to keep raising stuff to different angles or shifting stuff around, which I liked that mechanic, but I kept thinking, okay, I get the mechanic. I'm ready for a boss fight now.
Yeah.
But with shrines, it's here's a mechanic. It takes you 2 or 3 minutes to figure out, and you're off to the next one. I think from that, the generation of give me something quick, flipping through Facebook, looking at a quick video on YouTube, playing a quick game of Hearthstone, for example. The shrines were I really liked them from that perspective. The dungeons, it almost felt like a chore, because after you do the first one, you see the pattern of, okay, to even get to the dungeon, I got to go do this whole thing, which the Gerudo one drove me nuts, how long it took for that to go. I personally didn't like it that much. It wasn't that it was bad. It was just, I was eager to get in and just do stuff. And it's like, okay, well, first you got to get into the city, and you got to figure out how to get in. Once you're in the city, you get sent on this quest way up in the mountains to go retrieve an item. You get there, and then there's this whole stealth mechanic, which drove me, no pun intended, bananas. You have to go through all that. There's a fun boss fight at the end of that, so I felt a little rewarded for that, because the boss fight there was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then you go all the way back. I guess you can just warp back, Then you got to do the whole sand surfing thing, which actually I really liked that
That was
part.
very Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it really was. That felt just like
Yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus. And then you finally get into the dungeon,
Right.
and I think I had some challenges with that. That one
was
I think
difficult.
took me the longest.
That one was difficult. You
And,
had to do the 3 different cylinders and
So I spent like 5 or 6 hours on that one dungeon, just doing all of that stuff to get there. And, you know, in the grand scheme of a 100-hour game, 5 hours is what, 5%?
Yeah,
It's not a big.
yeah.
But I think I only ended up playing 40 hours of this game by the time I was done with it. So that took up a sizable chunk. And that's why I really like the shrines, because I could pop in and out in 5 to 10 minutes. So if I knew there was one close by and I'm on my Switch in handheld mode and I know I've only got 20 minutes to play, getting in and out of a shrine, it was like, yes, I'm making some progression. So
Right.
I really appreciated the shrines from that perspective.
Right. So, I mean, I get that. The shrines, like I said, for the most part, they were all different minus the combat shrines. And we had a lot of them. But the puzzles were good and they were varied and they never really repeated. So I did enjoy that of the shrines. From a design perspective, I just thought they were kind of bland after a while. But it coincidentally, though, I found the Gerudo quest to be the most enjoyable because of that. Because it actually gave you more world building. You got to see different sides, and the Yiga, that clan had a lot of potential too.
Yeah.
I wish there were more like hideouts throughout the world to make more sense of them always constantly stalking you and trying to kill you. But I thought it was a cool like side quest, if you will, to the main quest. Not only because of that, but because of the options. Even though it was a stealth section, and for the first few times I got caught and I immediately lost, there's actually a way to fight out of it. If you don't get hit by their dumb stun lock things they do, the big guys, you can actually fight your way through the whole thing. And again, it's options. But anyway, going back to the dungeon design, I agree. The dungeons themselves did feel a little underwhelming because they were so similar. You're right. Every single one had, you go in, find the map. After you find the map, here are the points. Find the points. You have unlocked the final point. Now you fight the boss. So that loop was disappointing. But like I said earlier, the Gerudo one really I liked because it led you to all these different areas. It felt like an actual quest to get into the dungeon, whereas like the Rito was super disappointing to me. It's like, you find the village, you talk to the elder, you talk to this one guy, he's like the Falco offshoot, you do some dumb target practicing, I trust you now, let's go, and you get in.
I actually liked that because of how short it was.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
But see that's why I think Zelda, that's why the designers did a really good job. Another reason why they did a really good job with this game is they catered to both sides. They catered to the folks that really wanted that longer, more meaningful, in-depth progression with the dungeon, and then someone like me which, don't get me wrong, I like those parts in certain games also, but in this one I was just like, I just want to go, because I mean there's so many games to play this year. I was just like, I don't want to rush through Zelda, but I want to get through Zelda. And so that's why I really like the shrines, because I felt like I was making quick progress, even though in the grand scheme of things I really probably wasn't. It made me feel that way.
And I think really looking at all four, the Zora and the Goron are probably the best paced.
Yeah, the Zora's was pretty great.
Zora was awesome. Like the battle too with the beast before you get into it, riding on the prince's back and like jumping up, and that was cool. And even the Goron, like having to climb the side of Death Mountain with the Goron descendant. That was just really well done. Those two were fantastic in my opinion. But yeah, and then going into like some other aspects. The game had a bunch of mini bosses, like we mentioned earlier. The Linos, you have the Hinoxes, you have Molduga in the desert, and things like that.
Yep.
And even though I like them, I kind of wish that there was more variety in terms of not just the mini bosses, but where they're placed. Because a lot of the areas, like the desert, only has Molduga, right? It has that sandworm thing. It's only found in the desert, which gives the desert that extra flair. It's like, oh, by the way, you fight this guy here. Whereas the Hinoxes, the Lionels, and the what are the other guys called?
The stone dudes?
Yeah, the Talos, I think. Yeah. They're found pretty much throughout the world. With some variations. You have the snow Talos or the earth or the fire, whatever. But the world design, while great, I think would have benefited from having that kind of variety in it. And enemies themselves too. There's really only like 4 different types: bokoblins, moblins, the Lizalfos, Keese.
The wizard dudes.
Oh right, Wizrobes. So I mean, it doesn't have a lot of variety. Yes, there's different types of those. You have your like electric Lizalfos and your ice and your fire. It could have used more. And the Guardians too. They were great. The Guardians were fantastic designs, fantastic enemies, very daunting when you first see them. You're very it's a scary look.
One shot kills.
Yeah, exactly. But once you get the Master Sword, they're pretty trivial.
Yeah. Or even Guardian arrows. If you stock up on Guardian arrows, they are almost one shot kills for most of the
especially
guys.
To their eyes, right?
Yeah. We haven't talked about, and I don't think we should at length because I think many other people do, but the durability mechanic. I didn't have any problems with it. I thought, there was always anytime you walk into a group of enemies, okay, if your weapon breaks, there's like 10 more weapons lying around that you can pick up.
Right.
And while it may feel like at times you're going backwards in progression, if you broke a really strong sword and the only thing around you is like a really dinky thing, at some point in the game you could probably get by with even the smallest of swords because of all the other options open to you. You still have strong bow and arrows if those haven't broken. You've got your bombs and fire explosions and other things. I kind of enjoyed it because it forced you to try out different weapon styles. Mm-hmm. I get that some people don't like that. They just want to have their one weapon and maybe upgrade to a better one and then just be this unstoppable killing machine. But I think that would take away from the enjoyment of the gameplay loop because if you are an unstoppable killing machine early on, then there's not any sense of danger anytime you walk into somewhere.
Right. I mean, it's I won't delve too deep into it either. What I will say are two things. It's primarily the game when it came to the weapon durability system, it worked best in the Great Plateau. When you were in the Great Plateau, you didn't care about your weapons. All you cared about was just kind of figuring out the game, seeing what it had to do and see what you could do, right? So you don't care if they're breaking left and right. You're picking up bokoblin clubs and rusty broadswords and things like that. So you don't really care about the weapons. So it's actually incredibly fun at that point because you're just going through weapon after weapon after weapon. It was great. The Great Plateau was the best tutorial segment of any game, I think.
Even better than Kingdom Hearts 2?
Yes. Yes.
Roxas, man. Come on.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know why. Sorry, throwing shade at Kingdom Hearts. I love that game. Don't know.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, Zelda. Talking Zelda.
Yes. So, but once the game starts giving you these like really cool looking weapons, these like legendary-esque weapons that you find after doing a shrine or doing these side quests and things like that, that's when it rears its ugly head, the weapon system, because you don't want to lose those weapons, right? It's like, oh, they're cool. So not only does it break the logic of like this weapon has survived hundreds of years and now you use it in a battle once and it's broken, but it takes away from that discovery because you go and discover this cool weapon and it's like, oh wow, this looks really cool. I want to use this, and then you break it and it's like, well, the payoff wasn't good enough. Like, yes, discovering the weapon was cool. But then you realize, oh, I can only use it for such a limited amount of time that it takes away from that payoff.
I think the way other games deal with that is that they include that repair mechanic.
Absolutely.
Where if it gets down to 0 durability, it doesn't break and it's gone forever. Some games do that.
Yeah.
It just becomes unusable or it's ineffective until you go and repair it. Which does make more sense because if you're using a really awesome sword, at some point it just gets dull and you got to go sharpen it up.
Absolutely.
So
they could have given you items too. Like,
frustrating.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I just thought about it. They could have given you items to sharpen, like maybe like find something you can put together. Hell, even the flint, for example. You can have a flint or something like a rock and like make it hot, and then they could have had ways where you could go about that. You don't if you're out in the world exploring, you don't have to warp all the way back to town where the blacksmith is.
Right.
And it didn't have to be. It wouldn't have broken the system, in my opinion. But that's where we're at there.
So there's one other thing that I have to talk about with gameplay,
sure.
And this was the thing that brought the score down a little bit for me. Mm-hmm. And I think for most people, this is probably inconsequential, but it drove me absolutely nuts because this system, it's not super essential, but you do need it.
Right.
And that's the cooking.
Really?
What drove me nuts about cooking was just how clunky it was of a system to use. So for those of you that may not have played it or didn't use it very often, to cook, you have to open up your menu. Well, first of all, you have to go find a fire pit.
Right.
And you have to be standing relatively close to it.
Yeah, like right up. Yeah.
You have to then open up your menu. You then go to your items, and you start putting items into your hands. And
Up
you
to
can
5.
hold up to 5.
Yeah.
And they can be different items, or it can be 3 of one item and 2 of another. And then you have to back out of the menu. There's no just cook command. You back out of the menu. Then you have to aim your ingredients into the pot and throw them in. And then it kind of blah, 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 and it gives you something, whether it's garbage because the ingredients you chose didn't work together, or they did, and it gives you something really cool. Say I wanted to cook some apples, and I've got 30 of them in my inventory. I've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, throw them in, and it's going to give me 1. Maybe it gives me 5.
It's
but
like a fruit.
I have to do that 6 times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you have to, just the manualness of it, I didn't like. And I really would have appreciated just some quality of life improvements, whether it would have been in the menu, you just pick your 5 items and hit cook, and it gives you the item right there, instead of having to back out and throw them in the pot.
And see the animation.
Because at some point it's like, I don't care. Or have you do that the first time you do a recipe, but then give Link some sort of recipe log where he can pull it up and it will show him all the different stuff he can cook. And I know that the recipes in this game were very free form in the sense that if you used 3 fish versus 4 fish, you may get more hearts out of the thing.
Right.
So that could have been part of the mechanic where it's like, okay, here's an item type that you can pick. So you pick that, and then it shows you all the ingredients you can use, and then depending on which ones you pick, it will increase the strength. I mean, games like, and I hate to refer to Skyrim again, but games like Skyrim and its enchanting system, you pick an item, you pick a spell, and then depending on the strength of the gem that you pick determines how potent the enchantment's going to be.
Right.
And I think something like that for the cooking system would have made it a lot more fun to use.
Right.
And, I don't think I made any potions with any of the monster parts. I didn't care.
Really?
I would make health potions that increased my heart count.
Right.
Because this game does get very challenging at certain points, and you need the health. It just drove me nuts every time I had to do it. I just... That drove the score down for me. And I know that might be inconsequential to other people.
Yeah.
Considering some of the other parts of the game that they could have had issues with. I loved everything else. That was the one thing that drove me nuts.
Yeah, I didn't have too much of a issue with cooking. I do agree that after a while though, like having to go into the menu, selecting the things, and like a recipe book would have done wonders.
Yeah.
And like maybe not even like it didn't even, in my opinion, didn't have to give you the item from that recipe book. Maybe once you pick that recipe, it could have just put them all in your hand immediately, and then like if they wanted you to see the animation like they did, maybe just put them all in your hand once you pick the recipe, and then go cook. Though I definitely used a lot of potions. I found stuff for like heat resistance or cold resistance or even stealth, things like that. But I do agree that the game, going off of the cooking mechanic, it does have a lot of just cumbersome things. Like the fact that it makes you want to see all those animations. And then also with the shrines, you have to see the animation every time you get to one. Unlock it, go in, and exit, and get the orb. Like, it's a lot of time that it wastes.
Skip those animations.
Oh,
I think after the 20th one, I was like, okay, I really don't need...
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being a jerk by skipping it, but at the same time, it's like, I know what's happening here.
Nothing changes besides like the Sheikah guy at the end, and even then, they're barely different. So,
right.
yeah. And I'll end also. I think the gameplay, from my part, the Master Sword should not break. I hated that the Master Sword. It didn't break, but it
wasn't permanent.
yeah. And the DLC that's coming out might fix that. It hints at possibly it not breaking, which hopefully it does. The side quests could have been a lot better overall, though there were some that were awesome. I don't know if you ever got to the Terrytown side quest, but that quest was very long. You had to essentially gather people from like all the different areas of the world to essentially start up a town.
Wow. No, I didn't do that.
Yeah. And as you get people from the different areas, the music changes with it. So you like if you get the Goron guys, you get the Goron like drums, and if you get the Gerudos, you have like their instrument comes. Very, very cool.
That's very
side
cool.
quest. And there was one where you climb Mount Lanairu, and there's a dragon that's infested by Ganon's blight. So you have to rescue it. Like it's like flying around, and you have to like shoot the Ganon like eyeballs, and then you rescue it, and then you get a shrine or one of its scales, and a prayer pedestal place comes up there too.
Wow.
So there's some really cool side quests, but for the most part, they were kind of just fetch quests, which, wow. So that's really it. Also, the final boss was anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Beast Ganon on the horse.
He wasn't... I mean, did he even talk at all in this game?
Ganon did not. He was no.
He was literally just a beast.
Yeah.
Monster thing. Yeah. There was no character Ganon at all. And
if you think about Wind Waker, where that Ganon literally says like something along the lines of like the wind, like it calls to me. Like that Ganon had character. Genuine character. And then you go to this where it's like, here's Bloodborne. He's the old one reborn.
Yeah.
Zelda.
Which, as a Bloodborne fan, I actually liked the boss battle itself.
Yeah.
At least the first half of it. The first half was intense. And there's a certain point in that boss battle where he becomes somewhat invincible.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out the trick.
How did you do it? How did you figure it out? What did you do? what?
Don't call me out here. I may have had to look it up online.
Well, I mean, like, what was the choice? Because I realized there's 3 different ways to go about it. You can, if he shoots his laser at you, you can deflect it and it immediately
hits him back.
If you use Orbosa's, whatever, her wrath.
Orbosa's fury?
Yeah, the fury, yeah. If you charge your weapon and let go, then actually
the lightning. Yeah, that's what I pretty much did.
Yeah. So there's going back to the gameplay of it, yes, it's very open. But yeah, go on with the Ganon.
I mean, it was fun. He looked very like twisted and deformed. Yeah. It was very horror like, which was surprising. But then, as you pointed out, once you defeat him, it becomes Beast Ganon mode, where he's just a giant warthog, and
you don't get hit once.
It's Shadow of the Colossus all over again, but it really wasn't even that hard.
You were pumped. You're pumped to fight this guy. Like Zelda comes out and she gives you the friggin' bow of light, and you're like, holy crap, this is gonna be amazing. You're on the horse, the music is incredible, probably my favorite track of the game, and then it's just like he shoots a few beams and you really never get hit by it. If you do, you're just in the way of that beam.
Yeah, I died the first time, but that's because I wasn't, having not really ridden a horse the entire game.
Oh my god.
I accidentally, I'm going straight at him, I'm charging, and I accidentally hit the button that launched me off the horse. And so now I'm just kind of sitting there in the grass. I'm like, oh my god, where's my horse? And then insta death.
Wow.
But yeah, it wasn't anything too challenging. Yeah. So are we ready to score gameplay?
I think so. I think we've talked about it enough. Yeah.
So I went with a 9. I don't want cooking to be the thing that brought it down from a 10. I think there were some very minor things that, in addition to that, brought it down for me. But yeah, I'd give it a 9.
I also give it a 9. There was clearly a lot of things that I had issues with, but that loop was just so well executed.
It was
so polished that it's just I couldn't give it any lower. The game was too inviting for me, too good. So yeah, definitely a 9.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk about audio.
Yeah, audio.
Now, Nintendo games, generally speaking, are known for having amazing music.
Absolutely.
Amazing sound effects. Just awesome all the way around the board. And this game really wasn't any different.
No, No, the music that was there was incredible. Yeah. I wish there was more.
I do wish there was more, yeah.
I don't know how an overworld theme would have worked because you're out there for so long, right? That it might have gotten a little repetitive. It's possible that maybe they would have like looped it once and then just take a break maybe every 10 minutes or something like that. I don't know how the system would work, but something along those lines because at times it was just really silent, but it did lead to good ambience. It's quiet. You're just kind of hearing the world, hearing the wind, the animals, enemies, things like that.
Yeah, when you're just walking around and the piano kicks in, it almost adds a layer of texture to the environment around you.
Right.
You hear the piano and it sounds like, oh, a tree branch just moved. You don't even think of it as music. You just think of it as the world is reacting to you in some sort of musical form, which was so awesome.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how they did the music in this game because they did it differently.
Absolutely.
To your point, there could have just been themes for everything, which there are themes for a lot of stuff.
Right.
I mean, when you get, and that's the other thing, if you're coming in close to a village, maybe like a horse stable or something, the music starts in soft, and as you get closer, it starts getting louder and louder.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that piece of it as well, because it felt like it was you coming out from the wilderness and coming into some sort of civilization, and the music helped you with that transition.
Absolutely. I mean, going back to the side quest of climbing Mount Lanairu, that happens. I started climbing it just for the sake of it. I was like, that mountain looks tall. I just want to climb it. And as I'm going up, it was night and it was snowing because it's snowy up there. And the music kicks in. It's this really weird, ominous music. And I thought, what is up here? I was legitimately like entranced. I needed to know what that music was. And then you see this like blighted dragon, and I was like, oh, my mind was blown from that side quest. It was so well done. So I definitely agree. Like, even though I sometimes wish it had more of a theme overall, I do think it really benefited from having this type of music design. Yeah,
I liked how they included themes from previous Zelda games, but they didn't overly rely on them.
Yeah.
And the first one that I encountered was actually Epona's theme.
Oh, really?
But
Cass.
I encountered it. Cass wasn't there the first time I encountered it, so it was part of one of the early quests where you're trying to go to see the Sheikah.
Impa?
Impa.
Yeah.
You're going to see Impa. And on the way, you stop off at a stable. And the music that's playing at the stable, I'm listening to it. I'm like, man, this really sounds like Epona's theme, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it really sounds like it. Like, this could be Epona's theme. I was like, man, clearly they were taking influences from it. And then later I came to another stable where Cass was there. And you realize that he is playing the melody, and then the actual village is like the harmony of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Epona's theme. This is so great. And I was upset that they didn't do all of the different themes, maybe from Ocarina of Time. I think there was a Skyward Sword theme in there somewhere, maybe with the Rito folks.
Rito was Wind Waker. That was.
I'm sorry, Rito was Wind Waker.
Yeah, the Wind Waker village of the Rito. They essentially put that theme in there, and it was beautiful. Because it was the Dragon Roost Island, is what it was, from Wind Waker.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I played that.
Yeah.
But they had Zora's Domain's music was in there. That was fantastic.
Oh, that music.
When you're going through Hyrule Castle, I think when you're outside, it plays the original Zelda theme song, The Legend of Zelda from the NES.
Yeah.
But then when you're inside, Zelda's Lullaby kicks in, and when you are going to fight Ganon at the very end, and you know this is the first time you're actually going to see Zelda in person,
right,
and not in a flashback, and then that Zelda theme kicks in when you're in the just the feels, and it's like it's become a cliche in movie trailers where they start taking these like upbeat pop songs or rock songs, and then they just make them like sad and mysterious. It felt like that, but they did it so well that I'm like, I'm coming, Zelda, hang on, I'm almost there.
Yeah, that was incredible. Honestly, the whole Hyrule Castle, somewhat of a segue, but that whole Hyrule Castle section was really well done. If for future games they make dungeons like that,
Yes.
that will be a possible 10 out of 10.
Yes. I threw shade at the other 4 dungeons in this game. The castle dungeon was fantastic.
So
loved it.
Did you even find the Hylian shield?
I feel like I did, but I don't.
Like
not.
the one, the hero shield. Like
No,
the one,
I guess
like
I
the
didn't.
one with the blue and red.
Was that in there somewhere?
It's in there. There's a way that you can like go through like some hidden cave off this like the bottom left of the castle moat. And there's like some caverns. There's a cart that you have to use stasis and hit it and get to. You get all the way to like some jail cells where they put people there. And there's a bunch of like silver moblins and silver bokoblins. After you kill them all, there's a room where you fight a Hinox. You kill a Hinox.
Oh wow!
And you get the Hylian shield.
Wow!
And it is the strongest one in the game. It has like 900 something like that. It's ridiculous.
Holy cow. That's
it breaks,
ridiculous.
but yeah, and you can repair it. This is one of the only shields you can repair. Like that's very good dungeon design.
So the music in this game is great.
Yes. Molduga's music was also very cool. The different phases to it when you get him out of the sand and stuff had really cool.
Was he the
sandworm in Gerudo? Did you ever fight Molduga?
Maybe I didn't.
Oh no! Oh, I gotta show you. After this, I will show you because it is cool.
There's so much stuff in this game that's so easy to miss.
Yeah.
I mean, you could spend 100 hours and still find new stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Moving on.
I thought the sound effects in this game were also really great.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the music added some of that ambience and immersion, but just walking through a forest and you can hear an owl above you. And I kept looking up, hoping to find that one owl from Ocarina of Time, and I never actually saw an owl in this game.
Yeah, I don't think there were.
But the owls, if you're in a thunderstorm and you've got your sword that's metal and it just starts crackling, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then the kadoosh when the lightning hits.
And you can, again, going back to gameplay, you can use it to your advantage. If you can throw your sword, pick it up with stasis or the magnet thing, and then throw it at an enemy and get him killed. It's like okay, anyway. But yeah, sound effects were really well done, absolutely well done. And I just wanted to going back to the music very quickly. The first time that I had that encounter with old music was when you're riding a horse at night. It plays the Zelda Lullaby, I believe, as you're writing it, just in a piano piece, and it was incredible. I was like, this makes I love it so much.
Speaking of Zelda's Lullaby. Speaking of Zelda, the one issue I took with this game from an audio perspective was the voice acting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I remember, during the Switch. I think it was in January when they finally said, here's everything coming out with the Switch. And they ended it with, here's the new Zelda trailer. But it was in Japanese the first time you saw it. And there was that one scene where Zelda's like crying and then she just falls into Link's arms. And just like the raw emotion and screams coming out of her was just blood chilling.
Absolutely.
Then you see the English version and she's just like... And it's like, okay, well, that sucks for that scene. But I'm sure in the game, no, she is so monotone and just very la 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 la.
Yes, very sing-songy almost.
And I don't mean to insult the person that actually voiced her, but the character suffered from the voice acting.
Absolutely. For Zelda, like we said earlier, is the best developed character in the game.
Yeah.
Because you get so much with her.
Yeah.
Right? And for her voice acting to be so monotonous, because it was monotonous, was disappointing. And especially now that they gave us that update like last week where you could choose your voice acting.
You can play Japanese version if you want to.
Mm-hmm. I decided, let me put it on and let me look at my memories. And just the first one where she's knighting Link, you could hear the frustration in her voice as of like, I don't want to do this. This is not, I wanted to use my guardians. I didn't want to do this, but here I am doing it anyway. And it sounded so much more natural. And the crying scene, I mean, that I listened to it again and I thought, holy crap. I even just out of even not listening to her the entire game in Japanese, just watching that scene and hearing, because it continues. It's not just that scene. She still continues crying after like the scene pans out and goes up. it gets to you. Like you feel that voice actor Impa sounds like old. Like you can tell the voice actress was really putting in that work to sound like an old 100+ year old person talking to Link. It's unfortunate, and other people on boards have said their languages are fine. The Italian dub, fine. The French dub, fine. The Spanish, fine. It's the English one that has the issues, and that's disappointing.
And it's not even that the dub overall is that bad, at least for me.
Yeah.
Like the other like the champions,
They're fine.
I was okay with them.
Yeah.
I actually really liked the Rito dude's voice because
jerk.
he was so snarky, and the way he came off, I was like, oh, okay. I want to punch you in the face. But Zelda, who is arguably meant to be the strongest character in these games, her name is in the title of the game,
it's her legend.
and she was the weakest voice. It stung. It stung a little bit.
Yeah.
But I really liked how, even outside of the vocal work for full-on dialogue, like when you're just talking to secondary characters and they just go, oh,
yes,
yeah, like depending on what it is they're saying.
Yeah.
I really like that, and that all came off really well.
See, that's always been a staple of the series, ever since like Ocarina of Time. And personally, I think that worked better than the voice acting. Like when the king isn't the king yet, when he's still the old man, he's like, ho ho, and he just jumps off with a paraglider, and you're like, this guy's cool. I like this guy.
Yeah.
And then he talks, my kingdom is in ruins. Save Zelda. I was like, that actually hurt the character because he seems like this goofy, cool guy just having fun and showing you the ropes, and then he's not. He's like some boring old guy that doesn't even sound old. He sounds like some 40-year-old trying to sound old. The game has always been good at giving, like Skyward Sword, as much crap as that game got, the character development was really well done, and the voices like that they do, and the gestures and the sounds, fantastic. If you think about Midna from Twilight Princess, she had her little gibberish rather of whatever Twilight language she spoke, and it sounded great. But anyway, here we are.
So how would you rate the audio in this game?
Still give it a 9.
Give it a 9? I would also give it a 9.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, music was so good. Sound design was really well done. So yeah, a 9.
Having played some other games since, it's definitely, I would say the soundtrack's in the running for soundtrack of the year. Yeah. I'm not sure it's going to get there, but it's very, very, very good. And we were talking just before we started recording that if you close your eyes during some of the tracks and you just listen to the piano, it sounds like an Animal Crossing theme, which I love because it's the same composer.
Right.
Anyway, so let's move on. We're going to finish with visuals. This is the last thing we're going to rate, and then we'll talk about the game overall again, and you'll hear our final scores. I didn't find very much wrong with the visuals in this game. I know a lot of people had frame rate issues. I think I had frame rate issues once.
Really?
And granted, I played in handheld mode most of the time.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't really experience any slowdown, and I was like, where does am I just not seeing it? Does it not get to me that much? There was one fight where there were like, I think I just got a bunch of guys upset, and I was just running in circles, and finally everybody was coming on screen and everything, and it finally slowed down just a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's what everybody was talking about, and I never saw it again.
So you had a good experience.
I had a very good experience with the visuals in this game.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just visual design and artistic merit, the game it's perfect, right? The art style works. Oh my God, does it work? And it won't age like bad either. Like 10 years from now, that game will still probably look amazing, just like Wind Waker still looks amazing.
Yeah.
The frame rate, Korok Forest was the biggest culprit of the frame rate issues. And it definitely affected me. I played mostly in docked, so I saw a lot of the frame rate hits. Though the patch they released a few weeks ago, I think over a month ago,
fixed a lot of it.
Oh yeah, like moblins, you could tell the moblins when you kill them, they kind of go into this ragdoll mode, and the game sometimes would just kind of hitch for a second, and it would you kill them and they freeze, and then it would continue. That's been pretty much fixed, and it happened a lot during the moblin. But mostly undocked. I believe it was either Digital Foundry or Eurogamer They said that it was more a connection issue, like having to send a signal through a dock actually gave that performance issue, if I remember correctly. But either way, it still didn't bother me. Like I saw it there, but it wasn't enough for me to think, "Oh God, this is unplayable," because it wasn't. It was in very specific situations that it happened, and now with the patch, it's barely there.
Outside of the technical aspect, I think my favorite part about the art design in this game, is that the towers that you have to climb that unlock parts of the map, and the shrines, if you haven't been there yet, or you haven't turned them on, they glow orange. You can see them from anywhere on the map.
Yes.
The long draw distance, it doesn't matter. They are out there, and you know where they are. Once you've been to them and you've conquered them, they turn blue. And so again, it's so easy to just climb a mountain and look out, and you can see, oh, there's all the orange I haven't been to yet. There's all the blue that I have been to. I'm going to go over there. Mm-hmm. The colors in this game, generally speaking, they're very soft. They feel almost pastel-like to me. It's very soothing to the eyes. But those oranges and those blues, they were so sharp and they popped out that it was like, ha, I need to go there.
Absolutely.
And it was just a really awesome way for the art design to help drive you as a player to another location. I thought that was fantastic.
Most definitely. And it's funny you mentioned the like you see it and you're like, yep, I see it from anywhere on this map. I know that I can go there. And I saw someone else on another YouTuber. Once they started the game, they immediately saw Death Mountain. You can see Death Mountain from the very beginning of the Great Plateau. And he thought, well, let me see how big this map is. So he looked at it through his Sheikah slate. He put a pin on it. And when he looked at the map, he realized, oh my God, this game is massive. That to me that is truly, truly amazing that they were able to get such a scale where it's off in a distance, you can see it, and you think, okay, well, is it really that far if I can see it from here? And it really is that far. And when you get to Death Mountain, it's huge. Like the climb up and everything was incredible. That was the scale was really well done. It all looked wonderful.
Even from that plateau, you can see the divine beast walking around on the volcano. Yes. And I remember looking at that and thinking, oh, there's a big boss I got to go fight at some point. It turned out to just be the dungeon, but
yeah, but still, like
it was like, wow. Definitely. And there was another guy, there was the one flying in the sky.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh my God, just from the beginning, what you're able to see, the draw distances in this are ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculously good.
Yeah. The game was done well. There's just visually speaking, fantastic. Yeah.
I really liked the animations in this game. I think, seeing the Guardians and how they move on their legs.
Yes.
Like, it's hard to pull that off.
Yeah.
I would think.
And not just that, there's so many little details that we probably missed. Like if you, with the Master Sword, you can cut off those Guardian legs. If you cut off like 3 or 4 of them and they only had like 2 or 3 left, they drag themselves. You see their bottom legs like just dragging on. Did you ever get that one salesman that dabbles in monster parts? Did you ever get him?
Yes.
Did you buy any of the masks? Like the enemy masks?
No, I don't think so.
So, but did you see them? Were you aware of them?
Yes.
So these enemy masks, they all they do is they kind of like you put the mask on, say like a Bokoblin mask, and you can kind of like I think you distract them or they don't really see you. You kind of blend in. However, every time you put one on, there's an idle animation for them. So when you put it on, Link actually moves like a Bokoblin. If you put the Moblin, he walks like a Moblin, and so on and so forth. It's great. Like they went to that. Like that's a totally offshoot thing, but they painstakingly animated Link to the Bokoblin thing, and it's so funny. There's even a part where I think he flexes. I think if you undress and you have something on specific, he'll start like flexing. It's like what? The game gave Link a lot of character. And I love that.
Especially for a guy that doesn't talk.
Which I also love that they mentioned that in some of the cutscenes. So it's, yeah. Nintendo honestly did really good with this game. That's where we go back. I can see why they gave it all these times.
So, we could talk about how the town design or even character design, I didn't have. I thought this was a 10.
Yeah, no, visuals are definitely a 10.
Yeah,
Definitely.
there's the 10.
Yep.
Finally got it.
He got a 10.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about how awesome everything is. It's great. They did a really good job with the visuals.
Even if some of the textures on the rocky surfaces could be a little off, that's such a minor nitpick because you have to be like really looking forward to it. Most of the time, you're going to be looking at Link climbing and the little rocks falling off as you climb and his little sweat. It's just done really well. Yeah.
So overall, it's funny, by the way, we don't discuss scores ahead of time. We each do our individual scores, and it just turned out that we both got them exactly the same.
Yep.
Which is why we're friends.
Yep.
So I think that if you do the math of how our averages work, it comes out to an 8.6.
Yep.
So not the 10 that a lot of sites have been doing, not the high 9s that some of the more critical sites have been doing. 8.6, but on our scale, an 8.6 is a must play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a slight against Zelda at all.
No, not at all. It's how it should be. It's almost an A, right? It's almost a 90. It's almost a near perfect game. So the game is what it is. It is a game that I think everyone should play it, honestly.
Absolutely.
Any gamer, period, should play Zelda. Even if they're not big on open world games, this one might be the one to get you into thinking, oh, I can see the design and why it works. Even if you're not a Zelda fan, it's very un-Zelda-like. I really do think it's a must-play. If you own a Switch, if you own a Switch, you own a Zelda. I mean,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
There's more Zeldas than there are Switches, so.
So yeah. But it definitely is, at this point, I would say probably the pinnacle of Nintendo design. For better or worse.
Yeah, I've been out of the Nintendo loop for the Wii U console. I skipped that completely, and I really didn't play much Wii.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to agree with that because I don't know what I've missed, but comparing it to what I have played, at least GameCube and 64 and SNES and blah, 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 NES, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. No, it's a great game.
So if you haven't played it, make sure you go play Breath of the Wild. Yes. 8.6. I'm about to sneeze, so there we
Bless
go.
you, buddy.
I was gonna try and say let's cut it there, but I got the sneeze out. Is there anything else that we need to talk about with this game?
No, I think that's it. I really hope for the future of the series. I really hope that Nintendo really looks at what they could have improved. Like, I hope they don't see the tents and think, oh, let's just replicate it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
if we get another Zelda that's the same thing. But Nintendo never does the same thing. They always innovate, and they try to push things forward. So I think whatever we see next, even if they take this formula, they're going to build upon it some more.
From Galaxy, like, just a quick example, Galaxy to Galaxy 2, which I know you never got to play them, but Galaxy 1 was a big shift for Mario. And then Galaxy 2 was actually, if you think about it, the very first real sequel to any game, because every Mario game has been different from the last. Galaxy 2 was not. However, they added so much more, and they did so many quality of life improvements and enhancements to the game that it was just an overall better product. So if they take that mentality, if they take the Majora's Mask mentality and apply it to Breath of the Wild, we could genuinely have a super duper 10 out of 10. But only time will tell. Yeah.
Well, then everybody else will rate it an 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that about does it. So congratulations, Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. You got an 8.6 from the Gaming Resume.
Absolutely.
Take care, guys.